Welcome to the Town of Arlington Redevelopment Board meeting on March 16th, 2026. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Ken Lau, and I'm the ARB Chair. Can the other members of the board please introduce themselves, starting with Steve?
Steve Revelat, good evening.
Hi, Vincent Baudouin.
Shayna Corman Houston.
Rachel Zamberry.
We are also joined by Claire Richter, Director of Planning and Community Development, and Sarah Suarez, the Assistant Director.
Thank you.
Our first meeting is review of our meeting minutes from last week. Steve, do you have any comments?
Nothing here, Mr. Chair.
Vince, do you have any comments?
No comments, thank you.
Shannon?
None.
Rachel?
I was not in attendance, so I abstain.
Okay, I have a couple quick comments. On page 3, on the minutes for docket number 3673, it says here the fact that the cornice elements of the second and third floor overhang, the first floor is awkward. I like to strike the overhang, the first floor is awkward, and say that elements of the second and first floor elevations do not align.
All right.
And I think that is... Oh, also the other one is at the end,
Yep.
under summarizing the issues. The last point was considering increasing the height of the commercial space entryway.
All right.
It's right at the end.
Okay.
It's not really the,
Entryway. Got it.
it's not the height, it's to increase the soffit / height maybe. Just to distinguish the entryway along that corniceway there. I think you brought that, Vince.
That's correct. It was to increase the head height as you enter, so not the height of, for example, the parapet or the top of the entryway, but the head height as you walk in.
That makes sense?
Got it.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Steve?
Yes.
Vince?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And Rachel?
Abstain.
And I'm a yes.
Great. Thank you.
Our second agenda on the public meeting for warrant articles on 2026 town meeting continued for March 9th. And it starts with Article 58 on tonight's agenda. No, sorry. Article 58 has been moved to next week on August 23rd. I mean, March 23rd.
Yes.
So let's bring up the first warrant article. Article number 39, administrative clarification to accessory dwelling units. Claire?
Nope, we are on Article 49, which is home occupations.
Oh, wrong.
I think you might be in the minutes.
Yes, sorry about that. Okay, yep. Article 49, zoning home occupancy.
Right.
And that is a meeting member, Jane Flemings. Is he here? Do you want to step up, please?
Great. If I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Article 49, home occupations, is a citizen petition zoning bylaw amendment warrant article to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw to add, modify, or remove definitions and regulations related to home occupations, to create the opportunity for running larger and more types of home occupations, or take any action thereto. And Mr. Fleming and Mr. Greenspan are here tonight to present their article.
Go ahead.
James Fleming, Precinct 4.
Andy Greenspan, Precinct 5.
I guess, should we just talk through the slides as we go?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Yeah, please go to the next slide. So the premise is very simple. If you are running a home-based business and you want to expand...
Speak up. Over here, we can't hear
Oh,
Move the microphone.
are we...
Yeah.
Good thinking. The premise is pretty simple. If you want to run a home occupation that's bigger than just like a room in your house, then your options are extremely limited under the current bylaws. And if you want to go to a commercial space, you have a bunch of hurdles to overcome. One of the biggest is that it's really expensive to rent commercial space. Even if you have the money, finding one in like a good location is not, there's no certainty of that. And then you're negotiating with a landlord on top of that who may not be amenable to whatever you want to do. And even if you get through all that, commercial leases are generally multi-year. If it doesn't work out, you're stuck with a multi-year lease and all the economic implications of that. So the proposal is, let's make it easier to take one more step in the direction of making larger home businesses in case the commercial real estate market doesn't work for you. Next, please. The high-level summary of the major changes is, right now you can't employ an additional person in your home occupation. Right, so it's currently 0. So this change would be to make it 1. So the next step up. The next major change is that if you are something like a painter, for example, you can sell your paintings on site if you want to have like a little display area. But it would apply to anything where the home-based business makes something at their home occupation and then sells it for profit, for example. And the third major change is that you can have a 2-square-foot sign. The 2-square-foot comes from neighboring towns, which all seem to have more or less agreed on that size of sign for home occupations. Next, please. There are a bunch of other minor changes in there that make up the bulk of the text of the motion, and it's for things like setting expectations for if you're going to have people come by as clients or customers, when they can come by, operating hours, for example. Expectations for, say, vehicle traffic. So if you are receiving deliveries, you can't have millions of trucks arriving daily to do things at your house. There's also no provision in there for something like a hazardous material. Like there are some occupations that you could run in principle by yourself, like wood finishing, where you can be working with flammable and explosive materials. So there are some towns that have figured out the regulations for keeping that kind of thing safe. And this is more or less taking advantage of those and sticking them in the bylaw. And then there's some minor organizational things, taking scattered sections from around the bylaw and bringing them all into the one section that is currently set up for home occupations. Next. Wow, that text is a lot smaller than I thought it would be, so that may not be all that helpful. This is a comparison of the major proposed changes to a bunch of other towns that are neighboring us and that have something clearly defined for home occupations as a use in their bylaw. So there are a handful of towns that have allowed you to have an employee that's not a resident of the premises. And then there are a bunch of towns that have had sign laws set up, which is where the sign regulation that's been added comes from. And then there are a few towns that allow sale on premises. No one seems to, there's no consensus, like varying towns are non-specific in some way, or will have adopted some, but not all of these changes. These are the ones that we thought were maybe most relevant to expanding the size of a business. But that's partly what we're looking for feedback on tonight. And I think that's the last slide. Great, thank you.
Thank you. I turn now to the board. If there are any questions, Rachel, can you start?
Sure. Thank you for bringing this back. I know that this is a different version of some of the exploration that the two of you brought forth last year for town meeting, so I appreciate that. My first question is about any conversations you might have had with the Director of Inspectional Services, if you've spoken with Mike Champa, and if he has provided any feedback on this article.
Only in the general sense that there's not really any enforcement of the current home occupations except by complaint. So that was not encouraging in terms of my expectation is that whatever we put in is going to be equally not as enforced as what's currently being enforced. The difference is that now if someone complains, there are a different set of expectations for what is legal.
Yeah, I'll add the implication he gave last year when we discussed a version of this was there are probably lots of people doing things that are currently illegal, but he's not going to do anything about it unless somebody complains, which doesn't seem very fair. So we wanted to make it so that more of those home occupations are legal. Things people are already doing that seem reasonable.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. I think it would be helpful. And Claire, I don't know if you've had any conversations with Director Champa about this article or noticed that this is in the warrant.
I have not had any specific conversations with Mr. Champa about this particular warrant article, no.
Okay. I think that would be helpful to have his feedback prior to weighing in about whether he has any concerns about the expansion and his department's ability to manage that. So if that's a conversation that could be had, I think that would be helpful. I do have a question about the decision not to tie this to the residential sign district in the signage bylaws. All of our current references to signage are in section 6 of our 6.2 of our bylaws. So I wanted to see if you could speak to the decision to include it within to include it outside of the signage section.
Sure. Two reasons. The first is that in the regulations as currently for home occupations, there is a provision that says the home occupation will not have any feature of design not customary in residential use, and a business sign definitely falls in that category. The other is that we talked to Kate Lucazia about signage because she had a similar question. We looked at the sign provisions, and in the sign bylaw section, it says, for home occupations, please see section 5.9.1, which is the home occupations section.
Which currently indicates that no signage is to be
Correct.
incorporated.
The
Okay.
assumption being that a business sign is not a customary feature of residential use.
Right. I would prefer for any for that to be cleaned up in this, and I'm taking a look at your main motion right now to see whether that could be incorporated, and that might be a question for town council. I would prefer all signage regulations to be in the signage section as opposed to the home occupation section. I think it's cleaner. That was the intent of including all of the signage in that section of the bylaw. So that's something that I think we could clean up. Let's see. I think that I'm in agreement with many of the provisions in this section. I think that it does get overly specific in areas like number 8, where you have very specific examples. And I don't think that that's necessarily appropriate in the bylaw. I think that if it would be more helpful to establish a way to describe what the inclusion is, as opposed to providing these types of very specific examples. And I think that happens two places. It happens in item 8 and item 12. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. My other question is around the specificity of limiting the number of pupils for music instruction. I don't believe that there is a limit for other type of tutoring or educational purpose.
There is in the current bylaw.
To 1?
Yes. To 1 for music instruction and to 3 for non-music instruction in the current.
I understand in the
definitions.
current, I'm suggesting that if we are taking the opportunity to update this, that I think that limiting it to 1 for music instruction is overly restrictive.
Even if it preserves the current one, you would prefer this be an opportunity to take that out in its entirety or increase the number?
To increase the number.
Okay.
And I think 3 as is included for other types of tutoring is reasonable.
Okay.
That's all I had for now.
Thank you. Shana?
Thank you. So let's see. You add language about the area in the front setback not being used for home occupations, and I was wondering why you did that and what the thinking behind that was.
Sure. The current provision is it implies inside only. The thinking was there are some things like if you were doing, say, an artwork of some kind and you need a place to let a large canvas dry, you might do it outside. You could do that front yard or backyard. So this was more if there's a thing I want to fight about, I don't want to fight about someone drawing a canvas in the front yard. I'd say let them do it in the backyard. I'm open to doing it in the front yard. It was just a decision to keep the scope as incremental as reasonably possible, because I'd like to see if doing anything is possible, because I have to get this through town meeting too. But no real strong specific reason.
So, in the vein of something we've been discussing a fair bit recently, Arlington's bylaw is quite involved, and I would encourage you to and I think this may be unnecessarily involved, an unnecessarily involved item. I might leave that one out.
Can I ask, when you say leave it out, mean?
I would strike that one, the front yard setback.
So the implication being outdoors in either front, side, or rear setback would be your preference?
So we have limitations already about what can be done in setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would leave that alone. Leave it, so let's not, are we going to, because then we get into questions about what is doing business in the front yard setback, right? Is it someone comes and waits on your front lawn to do business? Is that doing business in the front yard setback? As opposed to drying a canvas. It's up to you.
No,
Suggestion.
I guess maybe to put it simply, is your preference for keep it less specific so that those kinds of questions don't come up, or is it restrict it to indoors only?
Mm-hmm. I personally did not have a problem with allowing activity outdoors, but my colleagues may feel differently.
But your point, which I take, is that by stating that you open the question to what does it mean to be doing business, which adds another level of complexity to what's going on.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
So you So the hours that you recommend, 8 to 6, what was the thinking there?
That's the hours that construction is generally allowed to work in terms of noise. The thinking is if you have something that's noisy as a home occupation, we're parents of young kids and we have friends who are parents, and baby bedtime is usually around 6 p.m. or later. And if a table saw goes off next to you, that would be really obnoxious. But it was more this is like a kind of a worst case thinking for hours. Like this, maybe someone would want to take more advantage, but like this is something that I would think people could reasonably get on board of as abutters to a home-based occupation.
And are there currently limitations that you're aware of for hours of home-based occupations? For example, music classes, music tutoring.
There are no hours, but also you are not allowed to have employees or have clients visit the premises, with the exception of the tutoring.
Yep.
I see your point. This, in theory, adds a restriction on tutoring, which previously did not exist.
That's right. For example, after dinner piano lessons.
That's it. Thank you. That is a very good point.
Okay. I had a similar thought as Rachel about signage. Let's see. And I think those were my major items.
Thank you. Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for bringing this in. I appreciate the work that's gone into the proposal. As a disclosure, I think I'm one of the 10 registered voters who signed the petition for this article to appear on the warrant. That was before I became a member of the Redevelopment Board. And as a second disclosure, I'm an architect, and I might benefit from the portion of this proposal that removes restrictions on professional services. I wanted to start by asking just out of curiosity, and not because you necessarily need to have found this person, but have you talked to any people who have told you they would start a business venture out of their home if they could, or that they are currently doing it but they feel like it might be illegal?
You're asking, have we found a person?
Have you talked to any people who would benefit from this, or think they might be able to take advantage of this proposal?
I've talked to people about it, but if you're asking, have I found someone who said, yes, I would start a business if I could do it this way, I have not found that kind of a person.
Not this year. There was some discussion because a version of this was proposed at town meeting, and I know there was at least one person who said they wanted to have an art studio. I don't remember their name, but they, for whatever reason in the bylaw, one way or another, they didn't think it would be legal, and I think couldn't find affordable commercial space. But I don't have their name off the top of my head. I'd have to go back to the town meeting minutes in the discussion.
Thank you, and I'm really just asking in the spirit of illustration. I think it's helpful to picture the kinds of businesses that might operate, and you're including the examples of a painter or a jeweler is helpful to imagine that. So just a couple of more technical points. I wanted to ask you to verify that the blue added text is correct and the red strike-through text is correct. And an example is in the definition, where you're amending the definition of a home occupation, the text "a business or occupation" should be blue and underlined. You're adding that text, but it's not blue and underlined.
You said in the definitions?
In the definition of a home occupation, the text "a business or occupation," you're adding that to replace an accessory use.
Oh, is that in text?
Oh, yes, that's a typo. That should
Just something to verify.
That should be an addition.
You might read through the rest of it. I didn't get any others. The definition, I have a little bit of frustration with the definition where when you amend it, then, for example, a business or occupation which is carried on within a dwelling unit or outside or both, that we've kind of created that language by addition to say something that's just kind of wordy. And I was wondering, because it could be inside or outside or both. Okay. I was going to suggest that you might simplify that, just say that it's a business, occupation, or trade conducted by a resident on a property whose use is primarily residential, something like that. I can let you think about the exact language. I appreciate the items you added in 5.9.1b, section points 6 through 10, which are basically regulating the externalities of whatever the home occupation is. You're regulating the vehicular traffic, the noise, but not the activity itself. And I think that's a nice way of approaching it. And lastly, thank you for providing information about the bylaws in the neighboring communities. I think it sounds like what you're proposing is very much kind of within reason and not going beyond our neighbors. And I do think it would be a nice way of making Arlington just a little bit more friendly to a kind of small scale business.
I had one more thought to answer your prior question about asking folks who would be interested in this change. Based on the conversations at town meeting last year, it might be tricky on that front because there could be people who are currently doing something illegal that this would make legal, but they're not going to say that. Someone at town meeting spoke about on this article and mentioned something they had done a couple years ago in operating a home business that they were like, oh, it turns out it was probably illegal. And Mike Champa basically said, stop. So don't say anything. So it's kind of hard to, we'll talk to people who don't currently do this, but we're not going to. There's a public list available of everyone who operates a LLC or equivalent registered business in the town, and you can look at that. You don't know if it agrees with our bylaw or not. Mike Champa is not going to go to 500 of them and check what they're doing, and that would be hard for us.
I appreciate that, and please don't out anybody who's, But I think finding someone who has an activity that might currently be legal but would like to expand it by hiring somebody, for example, that's the kind of illustration that might be very helpful. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Steve?
Yeah, I appreciate your perseverance with this. Overall, I think this looks pretty good. I'm frequently surprised by the number of people I meet who run businesses out of their home. I know people who do design work, who do accounting. I may have done a little bit of professional service work on the side. Right? People who run tour guides. I think I agree that the current position on enforcement of home occupations is that if nobody complains, then it's fine. I think what's proposed here gives people some more latitude. It also, I think, offers some useful clarifications, and I'm generally in favor of this. Regarding the examples, I know they were specific. I actually found them helpful, but the example of a chain of you're touching on a fine point, and I personally thought that was a useful clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm generally supportive of this article and share the same concerns as the rest of the board members. I have one additional comment. Under class of use, accessory use, you're saying that this would be as a right from R0 all the way to R7.
That is correct.
How does this sort of work if you're in a big apartment building where there's one tenant on the 6th floor somewhere that runs a business that brings a customer?
And just to be clear, that's not a change. That's as currently proposed.
We have to address this while we have this open. And so how does that work? Because now you're making it completely legal for them to sell wares. Now you're dragging them through a secure lobby and through the whole apartment complex. Is there a way of maybe you thought about that, or I'm just wondering?
Do you have just in general, or is there a specific, just like how would it technically function?
Well, let's say you're in a big apartment building, and one tenant decides to sell his artwork. and now he has a customer coming up to look at the art. I mean, now what you're doing is you give them the right to have someone come all the way up there. That means they have free access through the secure lobby, or do you have to ring them up? I mean, there's has to be something done. They can have access to the whole hallway, so now the apartment building's not secure anymore. I mean, how do you address that? Or
I can give you 2 examples that might help. So let's suppose apartment building. There's, generally speaking, in the current motion, there's a provision that existed before, and we've clarified the language about, let's just take the topic of noise. Whatever you're doing as an home occupation cannot be to the detriment of quiet enjoyment, which there's some degree of legal standard around versus what's currently there. It's just shall not be a disturbance. In terms of things like running a business out of an apartment building. In the case of, let's say it's a building that's for rent, so that you have a single landlord that runs leases. The leases that I've written for my tenants and have been on the receiving end of as someone who is renting all have clauses that say you can't run some degree of business out of. So that's the case for renters. For condo associations, the master, actually, is it master or is it?
It's usually the master.
Master contract.
In the master deed, there's usually something to the effect of you can't run a business, and if you want to say open one, you have to reopen the master deed and get buy-in from all of the stakeholders. So if that wasn't there in the first place, then you have a high bar. So to some sense, it doesn't solve that problem, but that's a private matter to some degree. That's not.
so you're saying that issue would be resolved through either a lease or a condo doc?
It's that there are 2 levels of, you can think of it as things preventing someone from doing it. One is on the town's control, and one is in the hands of a private landlord or a condo association. This solves the town side, but it doesn't address the private entity side. So let's say a client could bring artwork up.
Okay.
You could do it, and then if the condo association found out, you'd be in hot water, which would not be so good for you.
I would just run that by town council to see if someone can challenge that. Because they can say it's allowed by zoning and your lease is superseding law.
We can run it by town council. I will say, per discussion at town meeting last year for the other motion I proposed about allowing businesses, certain businesses in our higher districts, somebody came and during debate asked whether they owned a property, and they said, could my tenant just do what is allowed here and open a business without my consent? And I'm fairly certain town council or somebody else said no, but we can check again.
Okay, I just.
The lease would take priority.
They would? Thank you. This is a legal counsel here. I'm just.
I get it. I totally get it.
I'm just wondering if there's any intentional consequences because of this. And I just want to think it through, that's all. I was wondering if you have, and I thought you guys have. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to open this up to town comment. Anybody from the public want to speak on this?
We gotta vacate.
Can you say your name and your address, please?
Thank you, Chair Lau. My name is Carl Wagner. I'm a Precinct 15 town meeting member. This article, or something very similar to it, came to town meeting last year as Article 38. The ARB voted not to support this idea at that time. I think it was 4-1 with Mr. Revelak dissenting. The reasons why this article wasn't good for Arlington were actually stated very eloquently by Chair Lau and other members last year. I think the reasons are still true. This result of this would be to weaken the residential districts, all of them, and to weaken our businesses. Increase traffic, noise, deliveries, difficulty to enforce. potential further segmenting of our already struggling businesses, loss of anchors. There are many, many reasons. I urge members of the board who are new, as well as existing members, to look at the great things that this board said, why this is not a good idea for Arlington. And I think I added in the comments last year about this time, on a typically bad weather day also, that the great cities of the world don't do this. They have the businesses on the big streets, the main streets, and even in London and New York or wherever else, they have the residential sections going back, and they're together. There's a cohesiveness from keeping residential sections, not adding signage, not adding allowed business uses, retail outside, not having people coming to the businesses at potentially hours outside of the allowed hours because inspection can't keep up. Thank you very much for considering against this.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for this article or have any questions or comments? Sure. Please state your name and address first.
Bob Regan,
No, let's do that.
27 Princeton Road.
Can you do that in front of the microphone, please? We have a home audience, too.
I was led to believe that
Can you state your name and address, please?
Bob Regan, R-E-A-G-A-N, 27 Princeton Road in Arlington.
Thank you.
I was led to believe that they have decided to put two establishments, both for needy persons, not children. One would be for assisted living.
Sir, we're not talking about this right now. I think it might be the next article. We're now talking about home businesses. Do you have any comments on that itself?
One other thing, I know you some other time, who owns the land? Does the church own the land or does the town own it?
Excuse me, sir, I'm not going to answer anything with that because that's not what this question is about. I'm opening up to Article 49, home occupancy, okay? You're questioning the wrong article right now, sir.
If you just hold on, that'll be coming up very shortly.
They're all valid questions, but I can't address it right now. Are there anybody else would like to comment on Article 49? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment for Article 49. And I'm going to move on to Article 50, amendment to Arlington zoning map, and Article 51, amendment to the zoning bylaw table of dimensions and dimensional regulations. Claire, do you want to introduce this?
Sure. Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Article 50 is a citizen petition warrant article for a zoning bylaw amendment, an amendment to Arlington's zoning map, to see if the town will vote to adopt changes to the Arlington zoning map that would rezone a certain parcel in the R1 district, specifically a portion of 0-lot Concord Turnpike in Arlington, Massachusetts. It gives the assessor's parcel identification number to R6, or take any action related thereto. I believe this presentation also encompasses Article 51, which is a citizen petition zoning bylaw amendment to the zoning bylaw to the table of dimensional and density regulations, to see if the town will vote to amend Section 5.4.2.a, dimensional and density regulations of the Arlington zoning bylaw to add the following under R6, assisted living residence on more than 20,000 square feet, 50 feet in height, 3 stories, 1.2 floor area ratio or FAR, or take any action related thereto. And these were inserted at the request of Mary Winstanley O'Connor and 10 registered voters.
Thank you, Claire. Mary O'Connell, you want to start? Introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I represent HYM Investments. I also live at 781 Concord Turnpike, so I am in this neighborhood. With me tonight is Douglas Mann, who is a partner of HYM Investments, and he's going to speak to the drawings and the need for the dimensional requirements. Just to give you some background, this parcel is intended to be subdivided, with 4.5 acres being used for the proposed assisted living and memory care unit that HYM Investments is proposing to construct there. This is an R1. We need to be rezoned to an R6. The property is owned by St. Camilla's Church. So that you understand, it took approximately a year for the church to obtain approval of the sale because it had to go to the Vatican for approval in Rome. This is not the site where the capped landfill is. HYM is not purchasing any portion of that property across the street. And I think you have the map that shows the parcel that they're intending to buy. This site is presently non-taxed. It is exempt from taxation. And if this rezoning occurs and a special permit is granted to allow this use, this will put on the tax rolls this property as taxable at I would suggest a significant income to the town net, because there are no students going into the school system. There's no trash pickup. There's no plowing the interior roads of this development. There has been a number of meetings with people in town, including the town manager, the assistant town manager, Director Champa, Director Ricker, Director Rademacher, the fire representative of the fire chief, and my client has also met with a number of town meeting members from the Poets Corner area. Some are here tonight, and they may speak to this. I'll let Mr. Mance speak to the design and the proposal, if I could.
Thank you.
We are not reviewing the design.
Thank you. Good evening. So on this slide,
Hold on. I just want to say that at this meeting, we are not reviewing design or anything like that. We're just reviewing the warrant articles, okay? But please, you're welcome to introduce your design.
He's going to give you the reasoning for the dimensions.
Sure.
Yep. So again, just looking at the plan just quickly, this is the parcel that is being proposed to be rezoned from R1 to R6. It's the dotted white line. So it is the portion of the St. Camilla's parking lot and the grass areas that's just to the north of it. Does not include the church property and does not include the church-owned property across the street next to the Poets Corner playground, just for reference. So again, this is the only portion of the parcel that's being asked to be rezoned from R1 to R6. We can go to the next slide, please. This is just quickly, besides HYM, we are the local developer, but we are partnered up with Experience Senior Living, who's here tonight as well, but they're the owner and operator. So they operate these senior housing facilities. We can go forward one slide. I can keep going forward. This is a longer presentation. Keep going forward. Yep, perfect. And again, two other things we should reference too is that we have held two large open meetings to date. We held a meeting for the St. Camilla's Parish community. We also had a neighborhood meeting as well at St. Camilla's Parish. So we had two large meetings in addition to meeting with some precinct town meeting members. So again, this is just the parcel that we're focused on. Part of the reason why we're proposing the change from R1 to R6 is that assisted living is only allowed in R6. It's not allowed in the R1 district, right? And so we are proposing 145 units that are both assisted living and memory care units. We can go forward, please. Some of the dimensional requirements are obviously in the zoning, but what we're proposing is a 3-story building. That goes up to 50 feet of height, and we could talk more about height in a second, but it is proposed to be a 3-story building, again, assisted living, and as Mary said, there's a 20,000 square foot lot requirement too as well, which we meet. Again, I think we can go forward. Again, this is not really about design, so again, but we did just show the community of how this potential building would lay out and how it gets set back from our neighbors as well. We would be meeting the parking requirements as well too. We're actually proposing 0.7 spaces per unit, which is a pretty robust parking requirement, but we would be well in excess of what the zoning would require. So if we go forward one more, again, this is more about talking about height. So the 3 stories to the top of the 3rd story is only about 35 feet. However, in order to have a pitched roof or residential character in nature, we do need more height. That's why we're proposing 50 feet. Also, our height is actually in the R6 district is measured to the highest point of the roof. It does not consider an average roof plane, so it goes to the highest point of the roof. Also, the site is quite large, and when height is calculated in the R6 district, it is actually counted from the average grade at the property boundary. So it's not against the building, it actually goes farther out from it. So, but again, our goal is to have this residential character in nature, which you can see here. I'm going to pause there because honestly, the rest is really more design related, which is we showed to the neighborhood. So, but just to give you a sense of the parameters.
Thank you.
If I could add one more thing. One of the concerns that were raised by some of the town meeting members that we met with was the concern, I've lived on that street for 40 years, so I know that over the last 30 years, there's been discussion about redeveloping that site and some neighbor opposition to some of the proposed uses. So a concern was that this be an assisted living, and spot zoning is not permitted, but what we've talked about and what we have town council reviewing is a development agreement between HYM and the town that if this is rezoned, the HYM agrees to build, if it's approved by the ARB, an assisted living memory care unit there, not an apartment building type situation. So we wanted to say that publicly. That's in process.
Thank you. Well, we start with Steve and see if you have any comments.
Okay, thanks. I know that, just to provide a little context for everyone, although you have shown a conceptual design, we're not approving the design tonight. What you're trying to do is to get a change in the town bylaws so that at a later point in time, you could propose something like that, which will be a whole separate process. This is just one step in the chain. I do have a couple. The dimensional and density changes seem quite targeted. It looks like you've taken the section of R6 that deals with any other permitted structure and just basically duplicated them under assisted living facility on a parcel of over 20,000 square feet, changing only the pieces that you've needed to, which in this case it looks like height and FAR. I think, yep.
Correct.
Okay, so I would say that it's a very, it is a very targeted change. Just because I like to play out decision trees, if town meeting were to decide not to adopt this, are there parties involved that have a plan B?
I don't know if the church has a plan B, but I do know, because it's been said at a public meeting that by Father Mark Bishop, who's the pastor there, that this deal is integral to the financial viability of the church. He said that at public meetings. So I don't know if they have a plan B. This is what they're hoping is going to happen.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Vince, do you have a comment or questions?
Thank you. So I appreciate the presentation, even though we're only voting on the zoning, but it is a very specific zoning change. So the presentation is helpful. I don't think that I personally have the full history of this site and developments that are being proposed or that have been proposed in the past, and so I'll be listening very carefully to any input from members of the public, from the Department of Planning and Community Development. As far as I can tell, I think it's a decent number of new folks who would be able to live in this area, and it would also be a development that would provide some local jobs, which is not a bad thing. My only real comment is, and again, this is not what we're deciding on tonight, but why so much more parking than our zoning requires? I would just encourage you to, knowing that this is assisted living and memory care, that seemed a little surprising. I would encourage you to see how you could reduce the parking and provide some more green space and some more outdoor amenity space. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Vince. Shannon?
So just confirming, have abutters received the proper notification?
We gave the list, and I sent out the notice that's required by the town bylaw through my office.
Great, thank you. Could you speak specifically to the 20,000 square feet? Where did that come from?
I think that there's a provision in there, somewhere in the bylaw, that talks about assisted living residences on more than 20,000 square feet. That's, I'm not sure of as I sit here. But we have substantial feet there, 4.5 acres.
Yes, yes. Steve, I thought I saw.
There are places in the use table for R6 that, I think there's one for its townhouses, apartments on parcels of more than 20,000 square feet.
And other permitted structures on more than 20,000.
So, as Steve alluded to, I think this is very specific, which may be appropriate. I did wonder with such narrow changes from other permitted uses, whether it would be valuable to the town generally to add instead of assisted living on more than 20,000 square feet, to simply change it to whatever the R6 language is now,
Townhouse, apartment building, or office, are you suggesting to add assisted living?
assisted living.
We would
there.
not object to that.
Yep. So, and then the last, just confirming, a project of this nature would not be subject to affordability requirements?
It would not be.
Okay.
Based on my review of section, Article 8, I think it's 8.82.
That was my read as well, just
Yep.
confirming. Okay, since this is not a review of the project, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
I think Shayna captured the questions that I had about whether or not there are existing provisions that could be modified. Overall, I'm in support of finding a way to allow this project, again, not reviewing design, but the concept of this project, I think, is an excellent use of this property.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I'm generally supportive of this warrant article, and I applaud the fact that you had meetings with all the heads of all the departments in town, and the meetings with neighbors at the church. So I just want to remind you that this is only the first step in the process, and this is just to bring it up to the town, and the town, at town meeting, will decide these changes. It is not up to us at this meeting here to approve your warrant articles. We're just moving it along and giving you some concerns. Thank you for that. I'm going to open this up to town, open up for public comment. If the public could also state their name and address, and please address the board, and we will not answer questions directly. We will answer them at the end of public comment. Okay? So, does anybody want to speak up, or want to speak?
I'll speak.
Sure, please come up to the board.
Thank you. John Gersh, Kipling Road. 25 years ago, I was one of the original founders of the Friends of Poets Corner. I also abut the Archdiocese property, and knowing that development has been inevitable at some point, we have I've been using the Friends of Poets Corner email list, which I had been harvesting over the years, over a couple of hundred households in the Poets Corner area, precincts 16 and 18. I've been funneling their questions to the developers. They've been very receptive to answering them about traffic, water flow, detailed questions. And I would just like to say that in general, the neighbors have been very supportive of this and would like to at least see these questions come to the floor. And again, I don't speak for everyone in Poets Corner, but I can say that, we have met in Precinct 18 with the developers in my house and the precinct 18 town meeting members. It seems like a positive for the neighborhood. The two biggest things were that the church continues to be a church in our neighborhood, and number two, the big one is that the uncapped landfill is not dug up in this proposal, and that is, like I said, that has a majority of support to the best of my knowledge, again, based on a couple of hundred households.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir? Can you wait till you get to the microphone, sir, please?
My name's Donald Cassidy. I live at 272 Florence Ave. And so I grew up in this town, so that's not Poets Corner we're talking about. I live right behind where this proposed building is going to go. There's a creek that ran under this, and everybody gets water in those houses. Everybody at the end of Florence Ave gets water. It ends at a dead end. We were never notified. I was never notified by anybody. So, and the Friends of Poets Corner I've never known about, but none of my neighbors have been notified. And this is directly abutting the property. So there's that, I guess. And this is like $7,000 to $8,000 a month to live at this place. So there's no Arlington residents that I know of that are going to be elderly residents were at the church thinking that they were going to be on a list to get into this place. And it's a for-profit place. And we all bought those houses thinking they were R1 zoned. When you look on the plan, the development plan, this all says R1 zoned. I just sat here for a better part of an hour where you guys talked about signage on a house, but you all voted right pretty much down the line that this was a good idea to change something from R1 to R6, which I would think is a much bigger deal than hanging a shingle on a house to run a business. But none of these people that I know of, that these people have mentioned, live in that neighborhood. And so we're talking about commerce there. We're talking about 145 toilets that flush there. I'm a plumber. You have to change the infrastructure in the street because every time it rains, if you go right there where the bus stop is on the corner of Dow Ave and Wadsworth, it's overwhelmed. It gets overwhelmed and they're down there trying to, storm and sewer get mixed together. So now we're going to add 145 flushing toilets, I believe it's 60 healthcare workers, the commerce that comes in from that. Right now, the church is leasing part of that space where the old dump was to a contractor, a developer, and it's a mess there. Anybody drive by there in the morning, rush hour? The trucks are trying to get in and out of there. It's a mess. So they're going to put the parishioners on the other side of the street to cross over. And if it's a money thing from the church, because that's what it was. When we went to the first meeting, the priest was kind of saying, we're going to have to close the church. And I'm like, I don't know, what's the Catholic Church worth? Close to $1 trillion. I don't know if it's a money issue, but I know this, that anything that goes there is going to, like the water alone there is going to be a mess. We all have pumps and they go off all the time without rain. So none of the other stuff, this is the parking lot that right now there's a little outbuilding there that the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts use, whatever. This company's they're going to get a variance of it, whatever. They're going to change the bylaw, change that zoning rather. Offers nothing to the community. What are they bringing? What are they bringing to the community? Nothing. A for-profit company. Drive by one of them. It's 145 units. Drive by one of the buildings. The ones in Belmont, right? They just finished 2 of them in Belmont at the end of the country club, right on Route 2. They're not in residential areas. You know why? Because they're smart. Because it devalues your property. No matter what they say, it devalues your property. And the people that are voting for it aren't living next to it. They're not going to be affected by it. It's like I can't imagine. Look at Horizon, the one in the Heights.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up,
My
okay?
time's up. Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak up? Any questions, comments? You, sir? Sure.
Oh, on the phone, right.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Director Ricker. I'm Bill Finnerty, 806 Mass Ave, Arlington. My family's been here in Arlington for generations, like a lot of other families in Arlington. I was an altar boy in the choir with St. Camilla's Church in a lector for Monsignor John Sullivan. He was the founding pastor in the 1950s that built St. Camilla's Church. I'm here speaking and standing up for the Arlington and Belmont families who want a beautiful holy church kept like it is. Philo Larry was the pastor for the past 25 years, and we never went through this ever. I urge the board to please vote no on Article 5051. This project you're hearing about is really a 3-story massive nursing home, sprawling and stretching from Route 2. You saw the plan there, and it's kind of hard to visualize, but Route 2 all the way to Dow Ave. It's like, you know, we need another nursing home, like a hole in the head, okay? There's like 6 of them within 1 mile. You could like walk to 6 different nursing homes from St. Camilla's Church. It's a high end. It's going to be so expensive, probably average $16,000 a month, like a place that most local seniors here will never afford. Article 51 is really a monster density plan. It wipes out decades long of R1 protection. So it's going to eliminate the 30% open space requirement by the town bylaws. So we say no. No. We're going to lose our open space. We have beautiful open space around St. Camilla's parking lot on the east side, perfect parking lot, green grass field with a dog park and all that.
You're coming up to your time, sir.
Huh?
You're coming up to your time.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to see if you could conclude it.
Maybe I can just sum it up that
Thank you.
if you could ask the precinct members that if they're watching to vote no on Article 5051. We don't want a Pottersville in our town.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public who would like to speak or ask questions? Yes, ma'am?
Elena Bartholomew, Precinct 12. I'm kind of new to this, but I just had a question. If you went and changed the zoning to allow this R6, and something didn't get processed for this project, does that open that up? Does it stay R6 for anybody else that wants to develop that spot? That's my question.
Thank you.
Someone.
Does anybody else like to comment or ask questions about this articles? Sure, go ahead.
Susan Silva, Precinct 20 on Perth Road. Susan Silva, Perth Road, Precinct 20. My question is, the Archdiocese and the church said that this is their big hope, to keep the church open. So if we don't allow this and it changes to R6, does the church also get included in the R6 if they end up closing?
I'll answer the questions at the
Okay.
end. Was that the only question?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody else which have any comments or questions?
Could you recap her question?
Recap, which question?
Recap her question. Could you restate what
Her question was, if this is not approved, what will the church do?
No. I believe her question, hold on. I believe her question was if the church closes, correct? Would the church also become R6? That's
Okay,
the
sorry.
question.
All right. Let's start with that question there. We're not looking at that parcel right now, so that's not up for it. So if the church closes, it's separate because it's not part of this warrant article. Okay, so it would stay R1. Okay? Is that, but let me start with, are there any other questions?
The covenants of the property. The covenants on this deal with the covenants. If these guys go out of business, is that, what happens to the building?
If you want to speak up and ask again, I can do that, okay? But please keep it quick, because you're...
272 Florence Ave. What kind of covenants are on the property? I mean, this deal. If these guys go under in 10 years, what happens to the building? Can someone come in and just change change whatever, they have, make it a hotel or... It's 145 units.
Thank
It's
you.
a lot of units. So I want to know if there are covenants on the property and the foundation when they build it. Would it sustain more height on the foundation build?
Thank you. That's your
Yeah.
question, right? Okay. Seeing that there's no other questions, I'm going to close public comment and return it back to the board. See if there's any comments. Any other comments from the board? Steve?
Nothing here, Mr. Chair.
Vince?
Don't have any other comments. I appreciate all the input.
Shana?
Nothing further?
Rachel?
I don't have any comments other than to say that I appreciate the discussions that the
This one, okay.
that the warrant article proponent is having with the town, specifically with the town manager. When we zone any property, there are no covenants on the zoning that we have that that a property will remain any particular item. There, if there is a business, a property, a residential home that is on a zoning parcel that is zoned for business use, and that that owner sells, they are able to build what is allowable by right on that property. So that is not part of this warrant article, to answer your question, a covenant that this would be the only item that would be built. What is part of this zoning article is that an assisted living facility of this scale would be permitted to be built. That is what we are reviewing as part of this zoning warrant article, as well as the rezoning of the parcel. So I just want to make sure that your question is answered.
Also, to go on some of the other questions that were there. One was about plumbing. I think you were referring to two things. One was groundwater and rainwater, and the other one was sewage. As you're a plumber, you know that they are disconnected. They're not the same. You cannot dump rainwater or stormwater into the sewage. So that's a separate matter. If there is a groundwater there, it's not tied in with the sewage. And part of the approval process will be, it will have to go through the town, and the engineer and the town will figure out, is there capacity or not? If there's not capacity, then they would have to provide capacity for that. So I don't think 145 toilets will flood out the neighborhood. It's separate from the storm. That's what I'm saying. The other one was
And it is separate from this hearing.
yes.
That, I think that's the bigger point.
That will come up later on in the special permit. And then that engineer, the town engineer will have time to review all this stuff. I'm just bringing this up. This is just a warrant article for this thing here, okay? So we just gotta take it step by step. And basically, it's the town that's gonna vote on this, not us, okay? There was drainage. Open space was another thing. I think they will have to meet the open space requirements for this project. And by looking at briefly, they have less paved surfaces. So I think the open space will be more helpful, but that's not for this session here. Did I miss anything else?
Rachel answered about the parcels rezoned and the development doesn't go forward.
Okay. So I think that's it. Okay, so this will, and if you're not notified of this, kind of suggest that you give your address to Mary here, and she'll include you in the mailings. I'm sure she must have included you in the mailing, because as part of being a neighbor, you have to get notified. And it's...
Well, just so you know, that the list comes from the town.
Okay.
Under the bylaw, so I use the list from the town.
Okay. Just give your name and address to Mary here, and she'll include you, okay? If that's okay, Mary?
Certainly.
Yeah, and, there's no intention to not include you guys. That's just that, yep. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're on to...
Sure.
Very much appreciate people.
Make it happen. We do our best. See you.
All right, if you guys are going to talk, can I ask you to move out to the hallway so we can continue? The meeting's still going on here. We're on to last article of the night, warrant article 54, traffic visibility. This is brought by Kathleen?
Caitlin.
Caitlin, sorry. And Claire, could you introduce this?
Sure. So we've moved on to Article 54, which is a citizen petition zoning bylaw amendment related to traffic visibility. The warrant article language is to see if the town will vote to amend Section 5.3.12.a of the town's zoning bylaw to permit building structures or vegetation across street corners if it can be shown that they will not restrict visibility in such a way as to hinder the safe transit of a vehicle through the subject intersection or take any action related thereto. This was inserted at the request of Caitlin Monahan and 10 registered voters. And I believe Ms. Monahan is here this evening. All right.
Caitlin?
Yeah, thank you to the board and to Ms. Ricker as well. Caitlin Monahan, 43 Highland Ave. Next slide, please. My objective with Article 54 is to amend Section 5312A in such a way as to completely preserve the intended function of that section, while also alleviating some conflicts that it has with other aspects of state law and also our local laws. So tonight I want to briefly review what 5312A says, show how it potentially poses a problem in terms of how it interacts with other regulations, then show how Section 53212B is a model for avoiding those conflicts, and then finally go over my proposed changes. Next slide, please. So the goal of 5312A is very simple. It's to make sure that if I'm a driver approaching an intersection, I can see the cross street very clearly. So the way it does this is it says, between the property lines of intersecting streets and a line joining points on the property lines 20 feet distant from their point of intersection, or in the case of a rounded corner, the point of intersection of their tangents, no building or structure in any R district may be erected, and no vegetation other than shade trees may be maintained between a height of 3 feet and 7 feet above the plane through the curb grades. Next slide, please. So it's pretty straightforward why we need something like this. Most vegetation and most fencing is visually opaque and would pose a serious hazard if it was placed too close to the corner. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, this current version of the warrant article does a little collateral damage insofar as there are various fences that don't particularly obscure the view of the road, but are nevertheless banned by this warrant article because they exceed 3 feet in height. Next slide, please. So one of the most crucial aspects that I would like to get fixed is that fences are an essential tool to keep children and pets safe. So if we look at what the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care says, they require a barrier of at least 4 feet in height around areas where children are playing in a commercial child care setting. So on the right, I have a picture of Arlington Children's Center just down the street. This is a town-owned property in our district. Normally, we would expect that you would need to limit the height of that fence to 3 feet. However, because of state law, they have to have a fence of at least 4 feet. And you can see there that the fence is about 4 feet on one side, about 6 feet on the other. And it's not just state law that thinks that you need fences above a height of 3 feet in certain contexts. If we look at our own zoning bylaws regarding placement of fences around swimming pools, we require a fence of at least 5 feet as in the perimeter around the swimming pool, just to make sure that no kids fall in. Next slide, please. Another consideration, quite a bit less important than the safety angle, is that it's hard for a person living on a corner lot in a historic district to observe the aesthetic preferences of the Arlington Historic District Commission while also observing this bylaw. So the design guidelines for local historic districts specify that you need to have any fence in that yard along the property line, which would not be possible, of course, if you instead had that fence cutting along the hypotenuse of the triangle depicted on that first slide. Next slide, please. So the solution to this is just to build in an exception so that if something doesn't pose a visual barrier, it's allowed, whereas everything that still poses a visual barrier is still forbidden. So there's precedent for that in section 5312B, which is essentially the same as 5312A, but for driveways rather than for corners. So it has a lot of similar language to 5312A, but then at the end adds this exception saying, unless it can be shown that the vegetation or structure will not restrict visibility in such a way as to hinder the safe entry of a vehicle from any driveway to the street. So essentially it's saying, if this isn't a problem for you or for your neighbors, it's also not a problem from the perspective of the bylaw. Next slide, please. So I would like to propose that we modify 5312A in as targeted and narrow a way as possible so that we can allow some of these safe fences, but not have any unintended effects. So I would propose that we do this by adding 3 elements and only allow fences over 3 feet, no other structures, just fences, and then require that these fences meet these 3 requirements. So the first requirement is essentially a restatement of the purpose of 5312A. So it cannot materially impede the vision of operators of motor vehicles. So if someone finds some workaround where it still meets the other 2 criteria, but it blocks the view of the corner, that is not acceptable under this bylaw. The second element is that it needs to be maintained free of vegetation. This is not something that's probably technically legally required because the exemption only applies to fences, and so implicitly any vegetation above the height of 3 feet would remain illegal. Nevertheless, this was an element that when I spoke to Mike Champa of Inspectional Services, he was concerned that it's pretty easy for vegetation to grow over time, and he wanted it to be very clear-cut and just maximally clear for everyone that you could not have any vegetation above that 3-foot line, which I thought was perfectly reasonable. And then the third element is where we get the objectivity. This was something that was Mr. Lau's idea when I presented this concept a couple of years ago, and he said that in order for inspectional services to enforce this, it's going to be really important for them to have a very clear, unambiguous idea of what's conforming and what's not. And so for reasons that we can get into if you all are interested, I would propose that 35% is a pretty good opacity cutoff such that any fence that is more opaque than 35% would not be permitted above that height of 3 feet in the site triangle at the corner of a lot. And that's all I've got for now, unless you have questions.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Steve. Do you have any comments on this?
Sure. First, I'd like to commend you for, I appreciate the research that, and thought that you put into this. I think this is fairly well put together. I want to start with a little story time. And this is a story about visibilities and corners. So in my area of town, corner lots with privacy fences are a thing. There are a bunch of them. They're completely opaque, and they're also taller than I am. Now, when one of these went up, I was talking with someone on my street about it, and they were grumbling that, you know, they put this fence up, and now every time I drive through that intersection, I really have to slow down in order to look around the corner. So, which you know goes to show it's like the functionally as far as traffic goes, that particular fence is acting as traffic calming, and I'll say even when I bicycle through that intersection, I still slow down so I can see what's coming around. Although, you know, this is a little out of scope of what you're proposing, is, you know, I think our visibility requirements are generally rooted in sort of last century's philosophies, where the idea was to give drivers a big wide field. So in theory, they would be able to see what's coming and react accordingly. In reality, the big wide field sort of encourages people to go faster, which increases the likelihood of accidents and the severity when they do happen. Now, I appreciate that you're still going with the improved visibility, and I think that's, you know, that's fine. But I think this is done in a very reasonable way. I don't see a 35%, 35% coverage as being obstructive, and yeah, I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Vince?
Yeah, thank you for a very thorough presentation. I think I'm going to sound negative. I'm not particularly convinced. I'm not particularly convinced that there's a hardship in keeping a tall fence away from the corner, even on a small lot. I'm not convinced there's really that many conflicts with state law. You know, if you have a pool, it's rare that that pool is in the triangle in your front yard. And I don't see a lot of people trying to do that. But I think that I also don't see any reason not to let this go to town meeting. Like, well, you know, it's not up to us not to let town meeting discuss it, but I think we could let it go to town meeting. I just wouldn't be able to give it a particular endorsement as an essential measure. I think if the town decides to vote for it, then it could be fine. I thought it was odd that our bylaw didn't have any other restrictions on fence height, so this is actually one of the only places where we do have a restriction on fence height. And I suppose in theory you could have a 50-foot fence in your backyard and your side yard, and just in that front triangle you could only have a 3-foot fence. So that's an oddity, but that's not something that's your fault. Yeah, one suggestion for your presentation is that you show some types of fencing as illustrations, you know, like a wood log fence and a couple of other types, but several of your examples are shorter than 3 feet, so you might try to find some examples of taller fences that, you know, I know you're just illustrating fence type, but that might be still a better example if it were illustrating a higher fence that was still had the correct visibility. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Shana?
Thank you for bringing this and for your thorough work. I really appreciate that. It sounds like you've spoken with Mike Ciampa, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that conversation?
Yeah, could we actually go back to this slide deck? I've got a couple of slides pertaining to that. Essentially, he has 2 comments. To be totally upfront, he doesn't like this. What he wanted, one was, if we do it, add the is maintained free of vegetation, which is why I put that in. And then his other comment was that no one follows this law anyway, why should you change it? I didn't find that, I guess, particularly compelling. I guess that's just a difference of opinion between myself and Mike Ciampa. Could we go a few further? Sorry, so many extra slides. Keep going past that. Okay, yeah, yeah, so adherence to the bylaw is already poor. I would like to think that if we bring this to town meeting, it might prompt 1 or 2 town meeting members to go home and trim their hedges. Given that nobody knows that this is a regulation, that's always going to be a problem for enforcement, very similar to what Mike Ciampa told Mr. Fleming and Mr. Greenspan. He told me that this is not enforced unless someone specifically complains. But I guess ultimately my stance is that if we give a very objective criteria for how the fence needs to be constructed to be legal, it will not be an inordinate burden on inspectional services in the event that someone complains for them to verify whether it's legal or not. And ultimately, I don't think that banning fences that don't impede traffic visibility does anything at all for public safety, which is ostensibly the purpose of this section of the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And I had recalled from the last time you were here that Mr. Champa was not a huge fan, and that is my hesitation. That is my hesitation. I'm sort of inclined to feel similarly to Vince that this is something we could send to town meeting and let town meeting decide. And I do appreciate the site triangle that you propose. We had, if you recall, a couple of years ago when you spoke to us, it took a little bit of work to figure out what exactly the bylaw said in the first place. So I think that's very valuable. And I will confess that after you came to us last time, I went home and I looked at the bushes along my driveway and I said, I don't know, and brought them down by probably 6 inches. So
Good for you.
that's all. It's a real pain to keep them 3 feet, I will say. But
2.5 feet for driveways.
2.5 feet.
Thank you, Shannon.
There you go.
Anything else, Shannon?
That'll be really hard. That's all. Thank you.
Rachel?
So I was not in favor of this previously when it came to the board. I still don't see a need for it, and I don't think that the redevelopment board should clutter up the schedule of town meeting by sending something that we're not in favor of. It is an endorsement of the board when we do vote favorable action to move an article forward. I think that, again, I think like Vince, all of the low opacity fences that you showed were below 3 feet. Other than chain link, they are not meant to be constructed at higher than 3 feet. And I am certainly not interested in seeing 6-foot chain link fences around the corners of our lots. I think that the fact that Inspector Champa is not supportive is instructive to me. And I think the 35% opacity is arbitrary and difficult to identify for anyone looking to use this proposed modification.
Could I speak to those points, or?
Go ahead.
That's I didn't have any questions. I was just giving you my
Great.
feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I do have one question. Is when you looked at this, was there any R districts along Broadway and Mass Ave that would be affected by this regulation?
I mean, I suppose they would have to be, because the R districts also include R6 and R5, and so there's really quite a lot of apartments and things that would be affected. I mean, it's a little hard to say what the effect of this would be, because all around town you already see a lot of fences that are in violation of the bylaw.
Well, I was more referring to, let's say, along Broadway and Mass Ave, say, for example, there was an R5, like an apartment building. And I believe the setback is 15 feet because it's not mixed use, so you can't come up to the property line. But does this triangle, if it happens to be on a corner, affect the ability of that, where that building is, or does it intentionally push the building back even further?
It doesn't, I think, my reading is that there is no impact on any of the positions of building. This is, I agree that technically the existing bylaw does say that the building cannot exist in that area. That is what it says, and I have not changed it.
Okay, because what we have right now is the visibility is marked from the back of curb, right? And you're essentially changing it to the property line?
No, actually, it currently is the property line.
It is property
which is, I don't think, a good way to do it, but I was concerned it would be problematic to try to change the definition. And so I left it. I left the definition as it was. I restated it very slightly because there were a few pronouns that were a little difficult to disentangle, and we did have that issue 2 years ago, people not knowing what it meant. And I'm totally open to changing
Okay.
the language in any way that
I
keeps
just
it
have to
clear.
check on that. 'Cause somehow I thought it was some back of curb.
If you go back to the first text slide, it says the property lines of the intersecting streets. And I think that's sort of the problematic thing, is that intersecting streets don't really have property lines. And so it's a little unclear. If we go back all the way to the beginning to where the third, sorry.
Here?
Yeah, it says between the property lines of intersecting streets. And the question is, does that mean the property lines adjacent to and parallel with intersecting streets, or does that mean the street itself, which does not inherently have a property line? And when we spoke with inspectional services previously, they said that their interpretation was that it was the property line of the R District house, not the street.
That's what Mike Champa said.
Yes, that was the consensus.
I just remember that last meeting, is it 3 years ago?
2 years, yeah.
We talked about that, and there was some discussion about that, and so you clarified it with Mike that it is from the back of curb.
It's from the property line. So it's, as shown in the picture, it's the yard. It's not the curb. It is kind of a weird standard to use because it means that even if you had an enormous sidewalk, you would still have the same requirements.
Yes, I mean, it's back of sidewalk, not back of curb.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had for questions. We will follow up with anything else. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment for this? Yes, sir?
David Bean, 50 Jason Street. In the illustrations that were given for this, I was surprised we didn't have any of the fences, which I think I've seen in residential neighborhoods fairly frequently recently, where you have these like 4 or 5 foot tall plastic fences that come from Home Depot, I guess, and people have them right up to the corner on their property lines. The illustration over there at the Parmenter School is a bad one because even if that fence were opaque, it wouldn't matter because of the one-way nature of Irving Street below that. But I think the town has enforced the existing law occasionally. At the corner of Gray and Jason Streets, there's a big hedge on the southwest corner, which, excuse me, neighborhood lore tells me used to be much taller, and the town told the resident there to trim it down, which they did.
Thank you.
And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Carl Wagner. I'm a resident on Edge Hill Road. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 15. Just as a PSA, I hope you won't take too much out of my time. There are rules for the height of fences. I learned it was 2.5 feet in front of my house to a street in front of me, and it's basically 6 feet in other places. There are more rules, but there are certainly very clear rules on how to do a fence by right. On this, I would say the existing bylaw laws are kind of working, and even though inspections only reacts to a violation, they're working well. I think this is a great instance of town operation, and I applaud the members of the ARB for hearing this a second time in 2 years. There were many more people in this hall who spoke against this idea 2 years ago. They're not here to have their word heard, but I'm pleased to hear very good, thoughtful conversation and some criticism from the board. I think that when it's a safety issue, we shouldn't be loosening it or sending it to town meeting to say, do you guys want to loosen this? We're talking about kids on bikes moving fast right at the edge of a corner. It's not the black see-through fence you saw at Parmenter. That's, as was mentioned by Mr. Bean, that is not a situation where there's a risk because of the nature of the one direction of the roads. It's places like perhaps, as was mentioned by Mr. Bean, where there's a four-way and a child or a dog or something could be moving very fast, even a runner, and that 3 foot or lower area is important, but certainly going higher, you just make a wall. I would also add that down on Broadway, 126, 128 Broadway is proposing 0 setbacks, which could be very dangerous too. But keeping to this, I would also say that if the proponent wants to make this happen, and she certainly does, I think there's an existing way that this could happen for her property, which is going before the Zoning Board of Appeals, which brings in neighbors to say, hey, is it okay to break the law, essentially, to do this? And that would be a good way to do it and still preserve the nature of inspections getting involved when the neighborhood feels that this law should be enforced. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public? Seeing none, I close public comment for this. And return to the board for any last comments on this.
None for me.
Well, this is the sort of the second warrant article relating to, well, there's this thing in our bylaw, but nobody enforces it and it's all good. That's not I just find that not terribly satisfying. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, that concludes the articles to be discussed this evening. Next Monday, we'll hear the final 6 proposals for the zoning bylaw. 6 or 7?
It's 6.
It's 6. Zoning bylaws. Can I get a motion to continue this hearing for warrant articles for 2026 town meeting?
So
to
moved.
May 23rd.
Yes, so moved.
To March 23rd.
March 23rd.
March.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Vince?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
I'm a yes too. Thank you. I'm now going to open up open forum. Is there anybody in the public which would like to speak? They have up to 3.
Question, was 58 to be discussed, or am I wrong?
I believe 58 was moved till the following week. I said that at the beginning. I might have been mumbling through that. I'm sorry.
No, I was not here.
Anybody like to speak in open forum? Seeing none, I close public comment for open forum. On to our next agenda item is new business. Does anybody have new business? Let's start with Claire.
No new business at this time, thank you.
Okay. Steve?
Nothing this week, Mr. Chair.
Vince?
As a new member of the board, could I just ask, maybe for Director Ricker, just a quick update on the status of the Arlington Heights Neighborhood Action Plan?
Sure.
Sure. So the Arlington Heights Neighborhood Action Plan, we have formed a committee who are looking into establishing a single zoning district for Arlington Heights called the Arlington Heights Business District. That group meets regularly with representatives from the Redevelopment Board attending. Kin is on the committee and Rachel for now, although Rachel may be continuing as a resident. I would have to check in with Katie Lusai about when the next meeting of that committee is.
I could tell you.
It's Monday evening.
Excuse me, it's Monday evening. The public is welcome to attend. We are currently continuing our work towards developing the single zoning district for Arlington Heights.
Can I just add one other item? There is a public forum that I believe Katie, if she hasn't already scheduled it, there is a date on the calendar with an exercise to be undertaken relating to the development of an architectural, what would you call it, kind of the architectural character of the business district to lead towards the zoning steps.
Right. And if I may, that meeting will be on April 1st from 6:30 to 8.
That's the public meeting.
Yes,
Our
the
next,
public meeting.
next committee meeting is March 23rd from 4 to 5
Correct.
in this place. Okay. And what Rachel was talking about is we're talking about instead of setting a set of parameters for, like, say, what needs to be done, we're getting visual images of what we like and asking the public at the next meeting to do that kind of visual images so we can say, hey, this is what we're thinking of, as opposed to saying it has to be this high, this has to be this set, this much opening, this, you know, we're trying to get a design image together.
Thank you. And is the goal to bring proposal to the 2027 annual town meeting?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry. I did forget an item of new business that I wanted to share, and that is on Thursday, March 26th. We will be having a draft comprehensive plan open house at Arlington High, starting in the cafeteria where we've been before. And I believe that meeting is at 6 p.m. And the public is very encouraged to attend, as well as members of the board. If members of the board do intend to stop by, please let me know. We will have to notice a meeting if more than 2 of you want to come.
I would notice the meeting.
We will notice the meeting then. Thank you,
And
Mr. Chair.
that'd be my recommendation. I'm assuming the rest of the board is fairly interested too.
I'll be there.
So,
Could I make a request that we also notice the Arlington Heights Business District public meeting, just so that we
Just
have
in
that as a
case.
belt and suspenders?
Thank
Sure.
you. That's a great idea as well. Thank you.
any more new business? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Steve?
Yes.
Vince?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
I'm a yes too. Thank you very much.